Open fire. Now that I have your attention.
Welcome to the Chess Ascendancy podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Chess Ascendancy podcast. This is Josiah, and I've got a special guest on today. This is my buddy Caleb Hindman. We have known each other since, 2003 or something crazy like that. We went to elementary school together, and we weren't super close, and then we actually went to college together years later, and so he is on. We're finally going to do a review episode for the finale of the Book of Boba Fett. For those few faithful out there, you 138 shining stars that are following on YouTube and however many audio subscribers, I know you guys have been waiting. Life's been really crazy, but I've got a little setup going on in here in the Star Wars room. Caleb was here helping me get some stuff set up. So you guys saw the Legends shelf is up there, and then behind me, you can't really see it, I got all my canon stuff set up now. So starting all the way with the Light of the Jedi, going all the way to the Rise of Skywalker. Our canon stuff is ready. I'll post a video of all of that, but that's not what we're talking about today. We're here to review the finale of the Book of Boba Fett. So we're super stoked on the Ben Kenobi trailer. My gosh, I mean,
my shirt almost came off when I watched it. It was...
Oh, so you saw... Okay, we're going to do... This is going to turn into a whole thing. But really quick, before we get into this, you saw the... did you see the Entertainment Weekly pictures that were posted?
I saw a few. I saw the shot of Vader.
Okay, so I'll pull one up for you right now. But the one that really was crazy to me was there's a picture of him in a cave. Did you see that one?
I didn't see
He's
that.
in a cave, and he's it looks like he's looking up at someone. And you made me think of this because you're talking about the shirt coming off. My thought is this where we meet the ghost of Qui-Gon Jinn?
Oh, come on, dude.
You know what I'm saying, dog? And for those of you who grew up in a Christian home, this is a very Joseph King of Dreams setup. But dude, when I saw this picture, I was like, I know it's on the other side of this camera right here. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
So that's the official shirts coming off moment for me, is if I get to see Qui-Gon. And we know that it's pretty much promised. But so we're here to review the finale. It was funny because my kids were sick. They're feeling a lot better now, but they were sick. And my youngest, well, not the youngest anymore, the middle child, Cash, I was like, what do you, Macy was asking him, what do you want? Like, how are you going to feel better? And he was like, Boba Fett. And I was so proud. So we watched the entire Book of Boba Fett yesterday.
No
1
way.
through 7. Yeah.
That's
and it was like, almost 9 o'clock, and he's almost 3 and Wolf's 4. So 9 o'clock, is long in the tooth for them. So 9 o'clock hits, and it's the finale, and they're like, and then Cad Bane comes on screen, and Cash goes, "That's my guy!" And so we watched the whole thing. So it was cool because we were planning to hang out and kind of chill today anyway. So I was like, dude, let's do a podcast together. And it was actually your idea to do the Boba finale. So I thought that was cool because I've been kind of waiting on that. So I called Samuel and I was like, hey, I'm going to do the Boba Fett finale. Is that cool? He said, absolutely. Because me and him are really chalking up some stuff to talk about phase 1 of the High Republic, since that's finally come to a close.
Right.
So we're talking about the Book of Boba Fett. So if this is your first time tuning into the Chiss Ascendancy, there's a couple of things that we get to that explains how we feel about the most recent episode. And I think we can do kind of a season feel as well once we talk about the finale. So there's 5 things that we talk about. Number 1, overall thoughts. That's where you just get, the meat of the episode. What did you think about it? Was it what you expected? Yada, yada, yada. Number 2, you rate it 1 through 10. And I think this will be the easiest one to rate just because it's the finale. So you've got the full ear of corn. My dad used to say, if you're dating, when I was in high school and I was dating, he'd be like, what you're seeing now is the beautiful young colonel, but you got to look at the full ear and know what you're going to get in the future. And there's a girl that...
He's an ear guy.
Yeah, well, I don't know about that, but it was funny because he was like, you got to look at the mom, and if she's still like as good looking as what you're dating now,
okay.
You could be in for a long season otherwise.
My dad used to say, look at a girl's calves. He'd say, look at a girl's calves. If she's got big calves, that's the foundation for a big woman. which stuck with me because
the
I always
rebar
looked
of
at
the
calves.
human body. That's so
That's
funny.
the foundation, man.
So look, it was funny because the girl I was dating at the time, he was like, "Yeah, she's a cute girl, whatever." And then we were at church, bro. We were at church of all places, which I guess that kind of cements the judgmental thought that everything Christians have. But
man.
we're in the lobby, and my girlfriend's in the room, and he's like, "Yeah, she's awesome. She's nice and sweet. She's pretty." And then her mom was there, and he's like, "That's the full ear." So you're with the popcorn size, is the full ear what you want? Okay, so all that to say, it'll be easiest to rate this episode. Number 3, what's the standout moment? And there can be multiples of these, but like, what was when you were watching it, you were like, oh, frick, yeah, And with the finale, there's like 12 of those.
Yeah.
Number 4, new characters. Is there anybody that showed up in this episode that was like a surprise? Finale, there's not really anything that's super crazy. But then number 5 is what's next, and you start to break down what we think might be next for Boba Fett or the Mandoverse and all those things. So, first things first, overall thoughts for just the finale.
I enjoyed it. I think my expectations of the season, I had to change those going as the season went on.
Right.
As a standalone episode, I enjoyed it. I thought it wrapped up almost everything.
Mm-hmm.
But it left a few things where you're like, what's next? Will we have another season? Will we not? I enjoyed a lot of the action. It was action-packed.
It's like start to finish.
Yeah. And
it's just going and going.
So I enjoyed it. It kept me on the edge of my seat most of the episode. There were some silly moments, some things, but we'll get into that later. Overall, I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I thought it was a pretty good finale. There's some things I wanted to see that I maybe didn't, but I can't complain too much.
I think the same thing. I was thinking I really enjoyed it, and there were things that didn't happen that I was hoping for. There were things different things that didn't go the way that you necessarily expected. And we're so spoiled to have, like, for me, I have this podcast that's like, I have people that I've met because of the podcast. I got people who listen to the podcast anytime I put anything out. But in the grand scheme of things, it's a small podcast. Yeah. And I sit behind, on my high horse behind this microphone, and I'm like, oh, not good enough. You know what I mean? Try again. And so, I thought it was really great. And there were definitely things that I would have done differently. But I think the key to enjoying the finale is take your expectations off of what you wanted the season to be.
Right.
And just watch it for what it is.
Right.
And I think that's the thing that stands out to me the most about that type of Star Wars is when we were growing up, going into the prequels, we didn't have expectations of growing up 70s, 80s, 90s.
Right.
This is what Star Wars feels like. So we went, and I don't know how it was for you, but when they re-released the special editions, we went with my dad to see those.
Right.
And it was like looking up at my dad, and he was like, this is Star Wars. And that was great. But then, for me, episode 1 comes out, and I was like, Jar Jar is Star Wars. That's awesome. And I enjoyed it. Like, as a kid, I legitimately enjoyed it. And I think I tried to recapture that during the sequels because it wasn't the original trilogy or the prequels. It was a completely different feel. It felt not completely separated. Obviously, there's still things in it that feel similar, but I think the one that I enjoyed the most was The Rise of Skywalker. Mm-hmm. And it's because I just went in there going, okay, obviously they can't do all the things that I want. It's the third of 3 films. Like, when you go into The Force Awakens, you're like, I wonder if Boba Fett's the main character. Yeah. Like, it could be anything.
Yeah, the possibilities are limitless.
Exactly. So I think a lot of people didn't like it because they were like, oh, it's a rehash of 6 or this and this. But when I went into it just wanting to enjoy it, I really enjoyed it. I think it's the same for the finale.
Yeah. And like you said, you've said a lot on this podcast, is we're living in peak Star Wars.
Yeah.
So have we ever had a Star Wars show? Now we're getting 5 or 6. We had Ewoks, right? Like back in the 80s, we had animated Ewoks, and we had Clone Wars. But we're getting legit movie quality live action series, and we're getting them every 6 months.
Yeah, and it was crazy because like there's so much going on. Like, I think when The Force Awakens was coming out, I can remember like I was at, my job, and then I had like a checklist of like, here's the things I need to get done today. And then whether it's my lunch break or it's like 30 minutes to the end of the day, but everything's been done, I'm like, I wonder what John Boyega has to say about The Force Awakens. Because that's all we had to look forward to.
Right.
And I loved The Force Awakens, but it was I didn't realize how limited I was in upcoming projects. Like, even as far as just books and comics, it was like nothing was coming out. And then The Force Awakens happened, and it's been just like a snowstorm of content ever since. And so, like you said, it's something I've said that, like, I don't know if you got to see the review I did of episode 2 with Brody from Officially Star Wars.
Mm-hmm, yep.
We were like, there's so much Star Wars to love. Why are people choosing to hate it?
Yeah.
And it's funny because, like, every Wednesday I go on my Marvel app and I type in Star Wars, and it's rare that nothing new pops up.
Right.
Because usually you get weekly issues of different, might be 2 or 3 weeks apart for a specific line. But if there's a Wednesday that I type in Star Wars and there's not like 2 or 3 comics to buy, I'm like, what the frick is going on? Like, that's how spoiled we are with content. So within itself, not rating it against season 7 of the Clone Wars or our hopes for Obi-Wan, but within the Book of Boba Fett, what do you rate the finale 1 out of 10?
Man, I know Samuel is very stingy with his ratings.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I should play that role or if I should just give it.
Good cop, bad cop.
I was on board with it. I'd probably give it a 9.
Okay.
9.25.
Ooh, digits.
Okay, so
we're getting into the decimals.
There's some things I really liked. There's some things I didn't like. All in all, I thought it wrapped up the story pretty good. I didn't have a lot of questions of any plot lines or things like that.
Yeah, I think the kind of going back a little bit, I think when the episode started, there was a lot of things we wanted or questions we wanted answers or plot points we wanted furthered that just didn't happen. And so because of that, I was able to go into episode 7 or chapter 7, whatever you want to call it, and just go, okay, this is where the story's at.
Yeah.
This is what I'm going to get.
Yeah.
And that made it more enjoyable. So I think for what we were expecting and what we got, I agree. I would say for me, like probably an 8.5.
Okay.
But there was some, the thing is, we are so stingy with I think there's 2 sides of the coin. There's people that negativity sells, right? You've got all the stuff going on. You got all the fake news. But you got, that's what sells. You know what I mean? Like, there's some, like, obviously the world's a crappy place, but there's also good being done in the world, but that doesn't sell. Like, nobody's like, have you heard the good? Like, you know what I mean? And so negativity sells. So of course, people who put out negativity, they get more clicks.
Right.
Or then you have Mike Zero, who just pulls crap out of his butt. He's like, all right, that's a good one. He just like types up a video. It was funny because I think it was Mike Zero. Star Wars Twitter is like super toxic, but it's also hilarious.
Yeah.
And there was one thing from episode 6 where there was an argument back and forth where it was like, is this the temple that Luke builds that eventually gets destroyed by Kylo or not by Kylo? If you've read the Rise of Kylo Ren comics, it's kind of up in the air. But it's funny because he was like, I promise you I have an inside scoop. It's not the temple, blah, blah, blah. And then somebody from the story group was like, it's the temple. And what's so funny is this guy, like, dude, he's making content. He's having fun, whatever, more power to him. But if he invited me on, I'd be on his show.
He's just pulling the handle, hoping that he's going to get a jackpot.
Exactly. And it's what's so funny is he was like, it's not, I promise. And then somebody was like, Lucasfilm Story Group says, yes, this is the temple. And he was like, they're lying.
I have it on good authority.
And it was just funny because he's going to still get 10,000 views on that video,
Yeah.
But I think that it's funny because we have toxic negativity in the Star Wars fandom, and then I've heard recently the term toxic positivity, and that's me. I choose to love everything they put out because it's Star Wars.
Yeah.
Like, and that's the thing is, like, for every Darkness on Umbara story arc that you get in the Clone Wars, you also get A Droid's Tale, which is the 4 droids and the frog guy, which ironically is George Lucas's favorite series in that series. So I thought it was really great, and there were things I would change if I just got to start from scratch. Hey, Robert Rodriguez, you're out. Josiah Greer's in. He's writing the Book of Boba. It would have felt more like what we feel the Obi-Wan trailer was, like more heavy, more serious. But for what we got getting into that 7th episode, I was on board, and I knew it wasn't going to be like, they're not going to backtrack and be like, all right, the first 6 have been kind of lighthearted, grunge episode 7, you know what I mean? So, okay, we got our ratings. For you, what was your standout moment or moments? Guys, I'm not going to lie, he's got notes. So I'm impressed. Give me some of your notes. Give me some of your moments that stood out to you.
Okay. I thought there's a lot of Mandalorian jetpack usage in this episode. You got to see Boba and Mando.
Dude, how cool was that?
That was fighting back to back, like in the trenches.
Yeah.
That's when my shirt was about to come off. Was when the guy falls from the building and they both turn her
dude
the whole way down.
Funny, like in episode 6, Cad Bane wounds Cobb Vanth,
right?
But he turns to the deputy as like, and it's funny when the pike was falling, Boba and Mando had both shot him, but they were still just like. It was, remember when we used to play Battlefront from like 2005 and you got killed by like rebel AI and then it'd be like you got killed by Nom Carver and then it shows him and he's like that's what that reminded me of is the pike is differently dead. There's 200 more over here and they were like
they were not stingy with the bullets.
But it was so cool because it's so cool to be able to reference like some of these comics I have right here.
Right.
But let me see. Stalling. But it was cool because okay, so standout moment for me, and we'll go back and forth a little bit, but, dude, seeing, like, okay, the comic that I was trying to hunt down, like, my whole childhood, and Joel from Raditz Forstad will appreciate this. Look at this guy. Jango Fett Open Seasons, the original,
sick.
This is from, like, 2004 or something like that. But, dude, is this a first edition? I'm going to check. My bank account just went up. Let's see. First edition. Holy frick.
Wow.
November 2002.
Oh my god.
I'll just put this one in my shirt. But dude, it's so cool because the look and how the characters are drawn in here, we've never really gotten Mandalorian action like this.
Right.
And just to see them like when they're finally fighting these bad guys, but then when they're fighting like the Jedi, and Dooku's a Jedi still, and that's when he first encounters Jango. Obviously, this isn't canon anymore, but when you watch him, there's all these Jedis, and you're seeing him like do multiple things at once, and it's 3 a.m. on whatever day it was for the finale.
Yes.
And I'm barely awake, and I see Boba Fett pull up his knee
rocket
and shoot the other direction. And it's like, and I was like, it was like literally time froze. It probably because I was in a stupefied like sleep state, but I was like. That's Jango Fett Open Seasons, but live action. And I was like, dude, I've been waiting since 2002 to get Boba Fett in that respect. And I've talked about this before, and I've reposted it on my photography page, but I remember Christmas of like 2017 or something. That Thanksgiving, or whatever it was, we went and visited, maybe the year before, we went and visited my in-laws, and my mother-in-law's like, I don't know what you want, here's some money, and I went to a flea market and blew it all on Star Wars toys that same day, and I got a Rancor from The Force Unleashed that has all the blue paint on him and stuff, and I remember taking and posting a picture of Boba Fett riding this and being like, this is a crazy what if, and then when you're watching the finale from the Book of Boba Fett and you hear, I was like, oh, frick.
Yeah, dude.
And he comes out and he's riding it like, that's the thing is it toxic positivity for me to be like, I didn't get everything I wanted, but I never thought I would see Boba Fett riding a Rancor.
Right.
I'm going to take a pause and fast forward to Thanksgiving and open up some turkey and just give thanks for this moment here. I've been waiting for my whole life.
The reveal is really cool too, because you see it's like the left hand, the right hand, and then you see his head come over.
Yeah.
And right there, I'm like, let's go. Rancor in the middle of the city, and then he comes over a little more and ducks his head down, and you see Boba.
Oh my gosh. And it was cool because I think I thought that the Rancor was small when it was introduced, but it's not like it's supersized. It was the same size, but it fit like in whenever you're fighting in the Force Unleashed, the Rancors are like full grown and the riders are small on top, but it seemed to really work. So for me, the knee and pistol action was great. The Rancor, what was something else you loved?
Okay. I want your opinion on this.
Okay.
And we had kind of texted a little bit about it. I feel like this Rancor needs to be drug tested or something like for performance enhancing drugs, because we've seen it get blasted in the stomach.
Yeah.
Stabbed. It took a lot of damage. And then you go back to the original trilogy and the Rancor gets hit by a door and just keels over and dies.
Dude, here's what I think. I think that it's younger. I think that, and part of me also thinks like, probably, it's kind of like, okay, used to, on the way you're driving from, we're both from Houston, right? And you're on I-10 and you're driving east towards Louisiana. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you ever noticed this, but there's one gas station that's like, pull over, get gas. We have a tiger.
Yes.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
And it feels like, kind of like with like, Joe Exotic's animals, you go in there and the tiger's like, please kill me. Like, this is not what I want. This is not San Diego. This is not Madagascar. Like, please take me out. And I feel like maybe the Rancor from Jabba's palace was like old. Malnourished. Like, Jabba lives high on the hog, but he doesn't seem like he's the kind of guy that's like, he doesn't have the Rancor because he loves it. He has it because it's a symbol of power. So he's probably not giving off like... You remember when Boba first got the Rancor and Space Machete was talking about how they were emotionally complex creatures and things like that? And Boba Fett was like, go kill a Ronto and feed it to this Rancor. And you know what a Ronto is, right? That's the thing in episode 4 where they're trying to get to the cantina and a speeder bike goes by and it's that giant, like almost like a long neck animal. And the jaw was like, whoa, falling off. So they want to kill a whole Ronto and feed it to the Rancor. So I think... Right. A, it's in better health. B, it's younger. And in C, it has an emotional connection that it's fighting for. Right. Whereas when Jabba's, garage door falls on this one, he's like, thank God. And just like the sweet release of death.
Sweet.
So maybe that's part of why I think he survived. Okay. A small moment for me, while you're getting your next one. Something that was like not a super big deal, but to me was like super awesome. I loved you're going to be like, okay, this is too far, too much nerd here. The way that Cad Bane looks while he walks.
Okay.
In the beginning when he's walking to meet up and I guess they're in Mos Eisley with the mayor and the head of the Pikes, he just looks like so freaking dog tired. Like he's still faster. He's still more deadly. He's still like, the fastest gun in the West. But he just like it was such a great, like, I don't know if it was just the actors acting chops, like, okay, 70-year-old Duros, got it, or if it was direction. I don't know what it was, but like he looks like one of his legs is worse than the other. He just looks exhausted.
He kind of has like the Ben Affleck smoking a cigarette.
Yes, like, exactly. He looks like his Starbucks lid fell off and it's like the front like third of his sleeve is drenched in hot coffee and he's just like, God, just give me these credits. But I just loved his gait. Like he was almost like, when you see someone like, someone who's either really tired or maybe older in age, and when they walk, they're almost like falling forward. He was like, gotta get these credits, I guess. Time to make the donuts. But that was something that was a small thing that was really cool to me.
This is more of a negative standout moment. And I've seen it all over Twitter and Reddit and everything.
Let me guess. Can I guess?
Yeah, I guess.
Is it the spin move?
Yeah, it's the spin move. Right? To me, it looked like when you're a little kid, and so when I was like,
parkour.
When I was 12, in my youth group, all the older kids played Tekken.
Okay.
And so I was like, oh, I'm gonna get Tekken.
Dun, dun, dun,
yeah,
dun.
Tekken Tag. I still remember it on PS2, and all the older kids were really good at it. That's what they played. So I got Tekken for like my birthday or something like that. So we had all the youth group kids over, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna show them how it's done. I've been practicing Tekken,
Yeah.
And I go to play them, and then it's immediately like I'm panicking, just mashing buttons.
Yeah.
So I'm doing like spin kicks and backflips.
You're far away, and it's like,
yeah. And
that's so funny.
That's what it looked like to me. Is like looked like a little kid mashing buttons.
Yeah,
almost. I thought it was funny. I don't know. Maybe it was like a tongue-in-cheek thing.
I don't know. Like, it makes me wonder if the actor was like, all right, I got to do something to stand out. And he does the spin move. Or if Robert Rodriguez is like, diddly-diddly-doo, do a spin move. You know what I mean? Like, but the thing is, you got to remember, Robert Rodriguez wrote Spy Kids.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's like, how can I make things like a thumb in here? You know what I mean? Like, so it makes sense that he would have that in there.
I didn't realize that. That makes it more interesting that
he's a Spy Kids guy.
Danny Trejo is.
Yeah, exactly.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I was secretly hoping Adrian Monk was going to show up. He would have been way cooler as the watermonger than the dodgeball guy.
Yeah, that would have been awesome.
But yeah, the spin move was interesting. I think it's one of those things that, the same way that you can be, the toxic positivity of like, I just love everything Star Wars, which that's me. But I think that there's the side of us that's anything that is not how we would do it is wrong. Mm-hmm. Excuse me. Obviously, it was cheesy, but I did see a lot of people like this is ridiculous how they disrespect Star Wars, blah, blah, blah. And I was thinking, like, you know, is it silly? Would I have done it? No, but it doesn't ruin the show for me.
Right.
But I think it'll be, what it reminds me of is every time I see it now, I'm going to think of this conversation. It's going to make me laugh.
Right.
Similar to years ago when we were in college together, we were talking about Star Wars, and you were saying, Joe, I know you're a huge Star Wars fan. Please don't hate me. I love Star Wars. There's one thing I can't stand. And I was like so intrigued, and I was like, what is it? And you're like, it's the screen wipes, man. Every scene, it's a screen wipe. So now, anytime I watch Star Wars and it's like...
Screen wipe.
I'm like, it makes me think of you. So hopefully it ends up being a fond memory in the end.
And even when it happened, I didn't even catch it the first watch around.
Yeah.
So I watched it, and I'm just so excited.
Yeah.
I'm like, ooh, Scorpion droids, this is so sick. Black Chrysanthemum, like, getting his butt handed to him. And so I missed it the first go around. So then I see it on Twitter and things like that, or I see it on Star Wars pages. So now I've watched it 4 or 5 times now.
Right.
I see it, and it doesn't take me out. And I'm just kind of like you said, I'm like, there it is.
I think so the spin move just makes me go.
Yeah.
But
a sharp exhale through the nose.
Exactly. Like the part that gets me is 2 things. Okay, both about the pale girl. I don't remember her name. Drash, I think it is. It's like Drash and Scad are those two characters. But okay, number 1, as someone who's handled a firearm, and I know that the recoil is not the same because it's not a bullet, it's not a projectile, it's not a slug thrower, which is what the Tuscans use. But like anytime someone holds a pistol, I don't care how small it is. I don't care if it's like a Derringer pea shooter. No one holds it with their elbow inverted because their arm is so straight. You know what I mean? And she was like, and it reminded me of the first time I ever saw Narnia in theaters all those years ago. And there's a freaking, like a giant, like dire wolf, which is the captain of the police or whatever. Like basically the second most dangerous person in the world behind like the freaking White Witch. And Peter, who's never held a sword, his wife goes,
sticks it straight.
I was like, what is this? And to this day, I'll be like, this is pretty good for the time. I enjoy Narnia. Yeah, Christian, you know, I got to support C.S. Lewis even though he's dead and all these things. And then Peter's like, don't come any closer. And I wish the wolf was like, so that's how you're going to hold the sword, huh? Like, I wish that it would be so funny if, like, I don't know if, like, it needs to be like Robot Chicken or whatever, but it'd be funny if he was like this and they pan over and I just imagine this centaur being like, loosen up the elbows. Like, I don't know. It just gets me. So it takes me out of, and then the other thing that gets me is she says, I've lived here my whole life.
Yeah.
We're not going to do such and such. And I was thinking, so Obi-Wan Kenobi went from like sexiest man on earth to like a dried prune in 20 years. And you're roughly 20 years old. And not only is your skin smooth as all get out, but it's like Aura Singh pale. Like it's like you're a human being. You're like Britain, never seen the light of day, living under a cloud and mist every day, pale white. And you've lived on Tatooine. I don't know. That was just so weird to me.
It reminds me of
like if they were off-worlders and they were new there. Yeah, that makes sense.
It reminds me of when we were in the Easter play together, and I played a Pharisee in this Easter play. I guess historically they're supposed to be really pale, but they messed up. The church goes all out and they got spray tans for people, and somehow I got on the spray tan list. So I felt sexy first off.
Oh yeah.
I was glistening, but then I remember them being like, no, why are you tan? You're supposed to be pale. Like that's why you're in this role. You're pale. You're a ginger. So then they had to go back and then do makeup on me to make me look
you looked like
a
freaking you looked like a chocolate Krispy Kreme donut that they took all the white powder from the white donuts and was like crap, and like because you still had a deep like tanned undertone, and then they were like LeBron James was like, you know,
I was Jersey Shore, and then I had to go Mrs. Doubtfire.
Exactly, that's so funny. And it reminded me also that same year, I guess I don't have to name names, but there was that girl that was in college with us, and she was like, I'm going to get two tans. Oh, my God. Okay, so new characters. There's nobody really new because everything's been established at this point. But something that they brought out of concept art, which you mentioned, was the Scorpion droids. What was your takeaway, and did you like them? But did you, how did you feel like they were handled in the show? Did you enjoy them?
I thought they were cool. I thought they were menacing. I did think how do they have I mean, I guess they're like intergalactic drug traders, so they
Right.
have a lot of money. But it does seem kind of like random that they had the resources to like bring these two droids. I don't know. Maybe that was just me thinking too far into it. A thing I did notice is whenever Boba and Mando were Mando's sitting there whacking on it with a darksaber, right? And he says that basically that their energy weapons can't get through and their kinetic weapons have too much velocity. That reminded me straight out of Dune. Which I know a lot of people say George Lucas copied a lot of Dune.
Right.
But that was like very much... I don't know, have you seen the new Dune? So they have like personal shields, and they can only use like handheld weapons because it protects them from like guns and high velocity things.
Yeah.
So it has to have a slow velocity, something like going slow to breach through the shield, which is kind of like what we saw with Santo, which also that was a great nickname, Santo.
Yeah.
I picked up on that.
It was cool because in the comics, you see him most in the Dr. Aphra comics, and she calls him Santi.
Santi, okay.
But I think that's like Santo makes more sense because it's not as like kiddish, and I also think it makes sense because Dr. Aphra is the kind of character to call you something cute,
right?
You know, versus like I don't know, like almost like when she's talking to Vader, she just calls him Vader. She doesn't like Darth Vader, my lord. She'll like. Sure, and she's not flirting, but like she just kind of got that like spunk about her.
Yeah.
So it was cool that he had that. The thing I thought about the Scorpion droids, one, it was awesome because it was from concept art from I want to say Attack of the Clones. Okay. So it was cool they brought that out. Anytime in Rebels was really great about this. I got to have you on for a Rebels show because we're both Rebels fans. But I thought it was cool that I love when concepts come back out and are used. And Rebels was like just an Easter egg, like imagine you open up a warehouse and it's just all Easter eggs. You don't have to hunt for them at all. They're just all right there. Yeah. That was Rebels. But to me, the Scorpion droids, the only thing I didn't like was I felt like they were on screen for too long. Like it felt... Okay, remember in The Last Jedi, one of the main complaints from a lot of people was, why is this like a slow speed chase? Why is the main plot line that the Resistance is out of gas? Yeah. Like that was you have this huge grandiose saga that's like the greatest media that's ever been created. If you really boil it down to like impact on society, money made, like, there's not very many like rooms that someone just dedicates their house to, it's one thing. And like all across America, there's like, and here's the Star Wars room. And so it's just had this crazy worldwide impact. And why is the main plot of the penultimate episode, this ship is out of gas, And like the whole time the First Order is like, pew, pew.
Yeah, they're just...
So it felt similar to that in the sense that, and this is, I guess I'll piggyback this onto another point. I love the episode. One of the things that I was like, I wish this was different, right? Because you can have an opinion on something without hating it. So for me, the thing I wish was different was Mos Espa, when you're starting the episode and you can see down into it, it's like this giant city, right? And it feels like the whole episode takes place
on like 2 city blocks.
In like a block. Yeah. And I think part of that is because the droids are like,
they're so, yeah.
Like I'll get there when I get there. And it's so funny that they're moving so slow and then people are sprinting away. And then as soon as they're like, they turn around and it's like, not moving any faster. Somehow it's caught up again,
Yeah.
And I just felt like, having Santo reach through and be like, he's kind of helping us see on screen, okay, slowly and with enough power you can push through.
Right.
Seeing that, seeing the Mandalorian do that, finally break through. All of those things. Obviously, the Rancor is just so powerful; it just breaks through it. But I felt like because it was 2 droids against a whole, I don't know. It felt like whenever you used to watch an old Western and a whole town is just 2 sides of a street.
Right.
It felt like those cartoons where they're like going in one door and then out the other door and then like chasing each other and like like that was Mario, but. But it kind of felt like we were like imagine Mos Espa was a kitchen and they're just chasing each other around the island in the kitchen.
Right,
You know what I mean? I wish they would have found a way, and I don't know how to do that. it makes me nervous a smidge for Obi-Wan to see how do they make it. But what's interesting is for Mos Espa and all that felt very grandiose and large in the Phantom Menace. Mm-hmm. Like, think about that. That doesn't even feel like the same city.
Yeah.
Like where they meet Watto and where the race is and all that stuff. That's Mos Espa.
Yeah.
But it doesn't feel like that in the finale of Book of Boba. It feels like it's a very contained. It feels like they're at Freetown during this fight, even though they're supposed to be in this big grandiose area.
Do you think that was maybe like due to like a budget kind of thing, since it's not?
I don't think budgets exist.
That's true.
With Disney. I know they do, obviously,
the
but
House of Mouse.
I think that I think it's resources. They want to film inside the volume as often as they can.
Right.
And I know that they didn't for everything, because like they showed like when he's filming with the Tuskens, it was in this huge like emptied parking lot that they just dumped a bunch of sand into. But so I know that there were other areas, but I think is there a way that we can use this wall and then turn it this way and use it for another wall and then turn it upside down for another wall? I think maybe it was just trying to use all their resources as wisely as they could. But it did feel like it was in a very small space. And I think it's like, if you mapped it out, if someone was watching and like just drawing a line, like, and, you know, really nerding out over the map of Mos Espa, it's probably the path they take is probably much more grandiose.
Right.
But like, I would have liked to have seen, I felt like we were real spread out. Mm-hmm. We had the mods over here, Boba, Mando, Finnick are over here, the boys are over here. Shout out to Bacon and Saucer, and then Santo was over here, and those areas felt different. And I feel like we went with the one that was the most generic looking. I wish we would have fought in one of the areas that looks more different, than the place we were at the most throughout the show.
I think also maybe some of it had to do with they wanted as much destruction as possible, and that's easy to do. Like in a city, in the streets of a city versus in a spaceport, or something like that. A few things that stood out to me with those Scorpion droids is Grogu. It stood out to me the last time I watched it today. Is Grogu uses the Force and picks up an entire massive Scorpion droid, which is something that Luke couldn't even lift an X-wing when he first started, training in the Force. I think that
he's growing quickly.
Yeah, I think one, it has to do with his age, like Luke says in the episode before. It's not so much me teaching him; he's remembering what he's learned. So that makes me really excited to see the future for Grogu. Just because he's not a Jedi doesn't mean he can't use the Force.
Yeah, I think that's something that's like, something that I think they've really tried to establish from 2015 on is the Jedi don't have to be this one way, and you in a way you still see Luke trying to use that mentality with Grogu when he's like, you can have this or you can have this, and it's hard because I have to break apart Luke from Legends, who's like, I feel like getting married, versus this guy that's like, shirt or sword, you pick. And Grogu has to pick. I think that Grogu hopefully ends up being a symbol of like, what I think I'm listening to Shatterpoint, which is like one of the best Legends books of all time. And honestly, I've never read it. And there's been so many things that I've read in my life, and it's one of those like most important books, like highly valued books that I haven't gotten to. And it was interesting because in that book, Mace is talking about the Jedi, and he's saying, we don't use the Force, we are conduits to be used by the Force. And I think that's where the Jedi need to get to. And if there's rumors about a show or movies that are coming after 9 with Rey refounding the Jedi and stuff, and hopefully we see like, dude, that may be the big payoff, is they're doing all this stuff to set up Rey and Finn coming back for that. Okay. If Grogu is like fully in his mental back and like talking and like open himself up to the Force again, if he helps her understand being a conduit for the Force, I don't know. It'd be cool to see Rey and Grogu interact. But I think Grogu choosing to be a Mandalorian, choosing to be a foundling, which secretly we all wanted, was like, well, if he's at the Jedi Temple, Kylo's going to kill him. Yeah. Like, I was like, what's going to happen? Oh, no. So, yeah, I definitely wanted him to stay with Mando. But I agree, like, him just becoming a conduit of the Force and, like, it being a natural part of who he is, I thought was really cool. Right. It shows his potential is, like, so high. Yeah. it does make it. It is interesting that like everything's so hush hush, where when Rey is so powerful, Luke is like, I've only seen this power once before, and he's obviously talking about Kylo Ren, and it's like they obviously didn't know what was going on with the Mandoverse, but clearly Grogu is on par. You know, his species is you know, obviously the most powerful force species per capita.
Right.
So it's one of those things that's like maybe he forgot, or maybe he never saw his true potential because he left or whatever. But it's cool to see him. I would love to see what happens, like what ends up happening long term. Is there someone out there that can train Grogu in the ways of the Force without being a dedicated, like, has to be this way Jedi? You know, Ahsoka might be one, but even Ahsoka's like, she's obviously not a Jedi. She's very like, I'm not a Jedi.
Right.
But even she was like, he needs to be trained a certain way because I can't do that, because she's obviously thinking about Anakin. But like, dare I say, I keep the door open for Crook at all times to come in. But
or okay. Oh my God, my name just blanked.
The book you just read?
Yes.
Quinlan Vos?
God, yes. Quinlan Vos. He could still be alive. Bad Boy Maverick Jedi.
Dude.
Teaches.
And Bad Boy Maverick Jedi, who's one of the most powerful Jedi on the Jedi Council. You never see him there. Well, maybe he's not on the Council, but he's a master.
Right.
And he's probably dealt, you know, when you look at people in canon, especially now the Dark Disciple was written, probably one of the people who flirts with the darkness the most and finds their way back, which, exactly. He's involved with the dark side, you know what I'm saying? But it's interesting because he has those moments, but finds his way back, which ultimately leads to more balance than the fear of, oh, I can't do anything. I can't have Skittles. I can't do that. You know what I mean? And he's like, I ate a Skittle this morning. You know what I mean? Like he's fallen to the darkness, which I think keeps him closer to the light, if that makes sense.
Right.
So interesting. Okay, so let me ask you this. What do you think is next for Boba Fett? Do you think there's a possibility for a season 2? Did they sew it up?
I think they left it where they could do either way. I'm really hoping for a season 2 or book 2. One thing I did notice, and I kind of tracked throughout the episode, is the girl from the mods. Her and one of the girls from Freetown kind of were like talking, and it seemed like they were like building a bond almost. So it'd be interesting to see maybe, I mean, clearly Cobb Vanth at the very end, post credits, we see Cobb Vanth in the back of the tank. I think maybe moving forward, it's uniting those two. Maybe it's like the city and out in the country. So maybe something tying those two groups of people together, and how Boba and Cobb are going to work to, I guess, maybe expand. Maybe make that into, like, I'm not sure as far as maps go how far away Freetown is. I mean, they got there by a
little speeder.
Yeah. So I think maybe going forward that we're going to see more of Cobb Vanth. We're going to see more of Freetown and how maybe that interacts with Boba and his ruling.
One thing that's interesting to me is so one thing is, rumor I heard, they put Cobb in the Bacta tank. Originally he was supposed to stay dead, and originally Cad Bane was in the Bacta tank. And it would be similar to what he did with Black Chrysanthemum, where it's like, hey, I know it's just business, but I've turned over a new leaf, and you can too, even though you've been in this life for so long. So 2 thoughts going off of what you just said. Number 1, yes or no, do you think Cad Bane's alive?
I think so.
Do you think that weakens? Do you think that so many people being alive after being dead hurts Star Wars?
No, I don't think so. Because I think we're talking about it.
Yeah.
So I don't think it hurts Star Wars. It makes fans we second guess finality, I guess. Yeah. Of death, and I think with the beeping sound you hear, the
little
beep,
chest light.
We didn't see Toto.
Toto 360,
droid.
Baby.
I think Toto's coming back. I think Toto is gonna get his master and get him back on the ship. And Cad Bane has clearly had different kinds of mods. Sure. If you look at his head, he had in this episode he has a metal plate in his head, which is a callback to the unfinished Clone Wars episode
against Boba.
So clearly he's taken some pretty
tough hits.
Yeah, some pretty grave hits and grave injuries and bounced back from it.
Yeah.
I think he's old.
Yeah.
But I would be hopeful. My father-in-law, he likes Star Wars and he watches the series and he's seen the movies, but he doesn't know any of the books or anything like that.
Right.
He hadn't watched Clone Wars. So for him, he's like, oh man, this is an awesome character.
Yeah.
And it's gone. He's dead. So,
they're probably going to try to paint with a broader brush how much can they use this character for those who don't watch the cartoons and stuff.
For us, it didn't feel like, oh, we just got, Cad Bane and he's gone. Like, we've known Cad Bane. We've had him for years and years and years.
Right.
But for more casual fans, they're like, hey, this is an awesome character, and he's immediately killed off.
Right.
And so I know some people were put off by that who aren't.
That makes sense. Who aren't as hardcore.
And I think if anything, we can count on Disney and the Mouse to bring characters back that make money. Because look at Grogu. I don't think Grogu was originally supposed to be more than a season, and then we're bringing him back for more. And
I think so. Here's my thought. Okay, if Book of Boba happens and there's another one, or if they want to use him heavier in The Mandalorian, Cara Dune was a very popular character. Obviously, she has some political views that people weren't a fan of. So she's not a character anymore, apparently. And so anyways, long story short, there's supposed to be a show called Rangers of the New Republic that either it's canceled or it's like getting a harsh retreatment. So a lot of people have wondered, is like Hera Syndulla from Rebels going to be someone that's a Ranger of the New Republic? Is someone like Cobb Vanth, who, appreciates freedom more than anybody, is he going to be a Ranger of the New Republic? So there's doors like that are open. Here's my thought, okay? Exactly what you said. You have the people of Freetown, you have the people of Mos Espa, and it's like, wow, we have way more in common than we don't, which don't let the news media fool you. We all have more in common than they want us to believe. It's us against them. Anyways, but it makes me wonder, same thing as you're saying, is it like the whole Mos Espa and Freetown region combining together, like the Weequay said, this planet deserves better.
Right.
Kind of, and it's the whole story of Tatooine of like, seemed to used to be a more life-filled planet. The Tuskens aren't who they're painted to be. It's not the Tuskens versus the moisture farmer versus the city person. It's all three of us against the drug and the crime that's taken over and kind of pushed us against each other, right? What if Cobb Vanth ends up being the daimyo of the Mos Espa region because Boba Fett's uncomfortable with it, and Boba Fett finds himself now in the debt of the Mandalorian who goes to help free up Mandalore? My thought is, what if that happens?
It's almost like in Batman, it's not the hero we deserve, it's the hero we need.
Yeah.
Well, maybe now they're going to get the hero they deserve, which would be Cobb Vanth.
Right.
The guy who's from there.
Because it's kind of like what Cad Bane said, like, what's the angle?
Yeah.
Like, do you think that he wanted to rule? I wonder if it was kind of like, Jabba was my boy, he always treated me right, but Bib Fortuna is a son of a gun. I'm going to kill him and take the throne. But it's like every time he gets the chance to make life better for the people of Tatooine, even if it costs him, he wants to do it. Like he's obviously not going to be a fan of slavery. He's obviously not going to be, he's not like, literally in a split second, they were like, so the people of Freetown will help if you get rid of all drugs in this area.
And she's like, that's our main export,
yeah,
man.
Yeah, and Bob was like, we'll do it. You know what I mean? Like, I think he doesn't care about the longevity of his financials. I think he wants to create a family.
Right.
He wants to create something that he belongs to.
I think the overarching, story and theme of this season has been Boba longing for family. He had his dad, loses his dad at a young age. If you watch Clone Wars through the whole time, when he interacts with the other clones, he's like, "You're not my brothers."
Yeah.
He doesn't want.
Yeah.
He wants anything to do with them. So he kind of grew up on his own.
Yeah. And then he was close to Bosk and Aurra Sing, but then the second that trouble hits, Aurra just abandons him.
Yep.
And he's like, what the frick?
And then, he had a past with Cad Bane. And so I think it's almost like the opposite of Breaking Bad. So he's not Breaking Bad. He's trying to break good. He's trying to put his past behind him, which reminds me of Kylo Ren when he says, you have to destroy the past, kill it if you have to.
Yeah.
We look at the finale of this season, and what's he doing? He's killing the one last person from his past.
Yeah.
Which is Cad Bane.
And it's interesting that the way he defeats his past is with the Tusken Gaffy stick.
With his newfound family.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the whole theme is family and rebirth and reinventing yourself.
And what's so interesting is I was listening to, I want to say it's Blast Point's podcast talked about this. They were saying, we're so surprised to see the kinder, more family-oriented, trying to do the right thing side of Boba, but we shouldn't be surprised because the whole Clone Wars for 7 seasons, we saw that at their core, the clones of Jango Fett were kind, family-oriented, loving people.
That's right.
And the galaxy hardened Boba Fett, and his time in the Sarlacc, escaping, finding purpose and affection and a family with the Tuskens brought the real nature of who Jango was out of him, because he had that traumatic experience as a kid. Like, he was 9 or 10 when his dad died. Mm-hmm. Like, I know that we feel like that's old, but if a divorce radically changed my life when my parents split up and I was 16, I wasn't like, I am who I am and this isn't going to change me. Right. Like, it was a big part of my life. Same thing for 10 years old, your father dies. Like, even though you have the love and affection that you've had from him, you're not a developed individual. Like, you've got 10 or 20 more years to really cement who you are. And I think he's starting to unlearn,
Right.
And so
Cad Bane even says, he's like, you got your father's blood coursing
you're just
through
a killer.
your veins.
Yeah.
You're just a killer. Yep.
But it was so cool that he used the same, like, if you go watch episode 2 of the Book of Boba when he's training with the Tusken warrior, she uses the gaffy, hooks his ankle, knocks his thing away, and then does like that, and he does the exact same move.
Dude.
And it was so cool that the Rancor is the difference maker, which is a bond. It's a relationship. It's a family. And the Rancor within the story itself was it's funny because as a pastor, you're like, the Old Testament, Joseph is a type and a shadow of Jesus. But like, it was like the Rancor is a microcosm of Boba,
right?
Which is, and I think, I want to say it was Star Wars Explained on YouTube that mentioned this, was bred for violence, but not naturally violent, emotionally complex. Everybody just thinks because they're powerful, that's all they want, but they create a strong emotional bond. Right. And it's like, oh, that's Boba. Like, It's the same thing where it's like he naturally is probably loving, naturally wants a family, naturally. And it was funny because Finnick says the Tuskens made you soft. And he said, no, they made me strong.
Right. And Cad says, you've gotten soft in your old age. Mm-hmm. And he said, we all do.
We all do.
I mean, grand scheme of the season, Robert Rodriguez said it's all killer, no filler, and I texted you like episode
that was a lie.
4, and I said, seems like there's a lot of filler.
Yeah.
But now at the end of it, I see why we got the Boba we got to tell, because they're telling a certain story, and they're telling this rebirth, and trying to turn good and trying to get on the straight and narrow. So for us to see that Boba, we couldn't have got the Boba we wanted, which was bloodthirsty, killing everyone.
Yeah, and I think now, if we do get him in a secondary Book of Boba, or if we get any or a lot of him in Mandalorian season 3, what we had to establish was a new man, a new character, a new creature, a new whatever, and maybe now he has something to fight for. Now we can just put him in front of a bunch of faceless, pikes or other criminals or Imperial remnant, where if he just goes in and is just like, whatever, abandon the people of Mos Espa, I'm going to hide up in the castle.
Right.
It like that's reverting to his old self. So he had to be there. He had to be, for instance, like, wow, that was so stupid of Boba not to use his jetpack in the very first episode. No, that's character development, because he's not leaving Finnick behind like he might have done in the old school. But now what I want is, give me more of when he's flying over the Nikto speedbike gang with Slave One. Give me some for sure, no questions asked, these are bad people that got to go away, to put in front of the new created guy. Because I think he's still that killer. We just didn't get to see enough of that because we had to flesh out the new Boba.
Right.
So,
and like you said, I think when it comes to his family or when his people are threatened, he's still got his father's blood. He's still a killer, and he will kill when need be. So maybe going forward, like you said, maybe he's in the dead of Mando.
Like, does he have a bond?
Right. And you said, it's all about, with the Rancor, it's all about, emotionally complex and creating bonds. Well, he's bonded with with Mando probably more than anyone, I think.
Yeah,
in this season.
or Fennec, one of the two.
And people hated on it about Mando being in there. I was all for it. I'm a Mando fan.
Yeah.
But when he's like, you still believe, basically in that bull crap, like,
yeah.
you still believe?
Yeah.
And he's like, I do. And he's like, good.
Yeah.
You know?
That was cool because it was like, it showed a lot that he was like, you should get out of here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, almost like, hey, you don't have to be here.
Yeah.
And then he was like, but I do. Like, I gave you my word. It would be interesting if, like, and we saw that in Mando season 2. He was like, well, the deal's not complete yet. We got to help you get the child back. So it'd be interesting if this ends up being like an ongoing relationship. And maybe Boba teaches Mando some of the old school Mando ways that he learned from his father, and maybe Mando teaches him some Mandalorian culture that he missed out on.
Right.
In the Legacy of the Force books, there's a character named Goran Baveen, and he's Boba's right-hand man when Boba becomes the Mandalore, and he'll tell him, like, there's a moment where Boba Fett's granddaughter's getting married, and Boba Fett's going through a lot of stuff emotionally, so he doesn't go. And Baveen walks up into Slave One and goes, you need to get off your shebs and get over there to your granddaughter's wedding, which basically get off your butt cheeks.
Right.
You know, it's like a Mandoa slang. But basically he's like, you dishonor her if you're not there. So he's teaching him the value of that. And I wonder if there could be a similar, like, relationship back and forth between Mando and Boba. Let me ask your thoughts on this before we start kind of winding down. So, close to the very end of the episode, right? Cad Bane's been defeated, right? Probably not dead. We're assuming that that's a homie beacon for Toto, we agree. We're back at Mos Eisley. We're in the little hut where all the crime bosses are there together, and the Pikes are there. Mayor Mokshais is there, and they're saying, you know, let's get out of here.
Right.
And the Trandoshans are there, and the Aqualish are there, and the Klatooinians are there, and all the leaders of these groups that turned on Boba, and they're saying, let's cut our losses and run. And the Pikes are saying that, and the 3 crime families that turned on Boba are going, that's not the deal. Yeah. And he said, no, if it was profitable, half my men are eaten by Rancor, the other half are killed. Not profitable. We're getting out of here. All that to say, what did you think? What was your initial reaction when Fennec Shand gets the kill on those 5 characters at the end of the show and not Boba Fett? And do you think there's anything behind it?
I think throughout the series we've seen that, you know, we talked about Boba's changing, Boba's turning good. I think Fennec's kind of the right hand man who is not afraid to get her hands dirty. Mm-hmm. And I think she even kind of, I don't know if that was ordered by Boba. Mm-hmm. You know, that wasn't shown. So is she acting out on her own? Is she acting on his orders? Mm-hmm. Where she's tying up the loose ends. I think that she's kind of still in the, you know, she's been a bounty hunter her whole life. Yeah. You know, she's pretty cutthroat.
It's cool because Boba Fett was known as a bounty hunter, but Fennec was known as an assassin.
That's true. Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it's almost like more niche, where it's like, I don't pay you to get somebody, I pay you to take somebody out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
An assassin kills.
More cold-blooded.
A bounty hunter can bring somebody in alive.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think she's just reacting on her instincts. I
thought it could be one of two things.
Okay.
A, it's ordered on Boba. She goes in there. Maybe it's her protecting her boss, where it's like, he's gone soft. He's not going to kill these guys. I'm going to take them out. Okay. Here's my other thought. This is my conspiracy theorist. You saw me watching Ancient Aliens earlier. Okay, I'm putting on my tinfoil hat right now. Okay. Here's my thought. Mandalorian season 1. Why is Fennec Shand on Tatooine? We're never told.
Right.
Who has the money to bring Fennec Shand onto Tatooine? The Pike Syndicate. Why would the Pike Syndicate bring a master assassin on, except for to take out a certain pesky Tusken tribe who's getting in their way? There's a part of me that still thinks that Fennec was hired to kill the Tuskens before, and maybe the Pikes put a bounty out on Fennec to cover up their tracks. We don't know. And I'm wondering, did she go and kill the Pikes
to cover her
before the Pikes could say, well, why is she working for you? We just hired her to kill the Tuskens, which is your family. Because I thought maybe Cad Bane was taken out there to kill them, but he clearly didn't know about that. Right. The Pikes admitted in the finale to taking out the Tuskens.
Right.
Right? They didn't say who did it. They didn't say the They didn't say we sent our men. We said we had it taken care of, right?
So you think she is the one who killed them?
There's a part of me that thinks she was called out there to kill him. That's why she's out there on Tatooine. There's no other reason for her to be on Tatooine. She didn't know Boba Fett was alive. No. Why is she on Tatooine when the Mandalorian goes there and they're going to get her? Right? Who knows?
Man, that's...
That deepens the plot.
That does. Because then it comes back to what's Boba going to do? Because it's all about family and bond.
Yep.
And he's had a bond with Fennec. He's had a bond with them.
Yep. Makes me wonder.
That's pretty interesting.
Makes me wonder. But in a perfect world, we move, obviously chapters 1 and 2, I was like, this is what I wanted. I wanted him to be an established leader of the Tusken Raiders. I talked about that for years. That'd be so sick. I don't care if he retires. Like, even if he just was like, I don't need that. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing with the Tuskens. That would have been cool. But I would love to see Boba alongside Din Djarin reclaiming Mandalore. The prophecy of the Mythosaur rising again.
Right.
Is the Mythosaur, is that a physical prophecy? Prophecies can be misread. Mm-hmm. Is that just something that was just there to expand the lore of the Mandalorians during the Book of Boba Fett? Or is it a physical, Din Djarin's going to ride a Mythosaur, and that's how they reclaim Mandalore from the Empire? Is it symbolic that the only Mandalorian that we've ever seen have the Mythosaur on their armor is Boba Fett? Does he reclaim to, rise to reclaim Mandalore? We don't know.
Yeah.
So I think that for Boba's story is not done being told, and whether it continues in the Book of Boba, Chapter 2 or Book 2, or whether he's just a bigger piece of the pie in the Mandoverse from now on, we don't know.
I like you just said, I think the Mandoverse is fully cemented. They've taken place in each other's shows. So I think we're going to continue to see that.
I think they're
going to share
It's
episodes.
too much to have them like in a show together constantly, but I think you can have a healthy dose.
He's got your back when you need it. He's the muscle you can call him. Man, that's
my biggest gripe.
Okay.
We never got Bosk.
You're right. We never got
Bosk. I was telling Skeleton Astronaut, I'm invited on an upcoming podcast episode for another guy that's doing a review. And when he asked me what I think, I'm going to say 0 out of 10, no Bosk. When I first start the show, and then obviously expand on it a bit. But, I think maybe if Toto 360 does come and help Cad, maybe Cad calls in a favor. He clearly wants to prey on Boba's emotions. That's how he knows maybe he's faster, but I think he knows in an all-out brawl, Boba is just as deadly as he is.
Right.
And the emotional side of Boba is what he plays on. He played on it with the Tuskens. He played on it with his dad.
Yep.
And maybe someone that was a brother or almost like a father figure to him from the Clone Wars, Bosk, being against Boba again. Maybe that gets the leg up on him. And especially now that Boba had a relationship with Bosk, but in the War of the Bounty Hunters, it goes away because Bosk is trying to bring in Boba for a bounty, and Boba Fett blows his legs off and all this other crap. So now that Boba Fett has a good and strong established relationship with Black Chrysanthemum, you can't be friends with Black Chrysanthemum and friends with Bosk.
Right.
It's like Khabib used to say, you can't say assalamu alaikum and congrats about whiskey. You can't say in the same sentence whenever at the press conference with Conor McGregor. So, I don't know. I still have hopes. I still want to see Bosk in live action.
Man, like you said earlier, I think at this point, if the fans want it bad enough, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
I feel like Star Wars is doing a pretty good job. And I don't hate it at fan service. I'm a fan. I love fan service.
I want to be served.
Yeah, please serve me. I want all of it. I think, at this point, nothing is, that's not going to happen. I can't ever say that about any Star Wars content from now on.
Yeah. If you would have told me in 2015, which in the grand scheme of time here on this earth is not that long ago.
Right.
Hey, you're going to get Luke Skywalker versus Dark Troopers, and there's actually going to be a youngling of Yoda's species who's adopted by a guy that's called the Mandalorian. His name's Din Djarin, and he's based on the man with no name personality that Boba Fett used to have. Oh, and Boba Fett's also going to be back. That's going to happen. And then he's going to have his own show, and believe it or not, he's going to ride a Rancor, and he's going to kill Cad Bane in the finale of his own show, but he's not going to do it with blasters. He's going to do it with a gaffy stick because the Tuskens actually brought him into his tribe. I would be like, pause.
Yeah.
Like I would wake up and be like, what's going on? Am I in a coma?
It's a fever dream.
Yeah. And so there's a lot of really good stuff. So before we sign off, give me a few last thoughts. Anything that we didn't cover that you had written down? Anything you wrote down?
One last thing. When it came to Boba and the Rancor, he has the final Scorpion droid. He has his hands crossed, and Boba says, "Do it."
Yeah.
Which, come on, man. That's like
straight out of our Revenge of the Sith dreams.
Do it. Decapitating.
It is funny that the claws are crossed.
Dude, that was straight up. That was,
that was a callback to our friend Ian McDermott. That's dope.
I loved it. That was something I noticed today. Once again, like, I also love that I can watch it and notice something new. Mm-hmm. I can watch it 5 times and notice something new every time.
I loved, the Cad Bane look could have been different, but it grew on me. It's similar to like the Inquisitor from the Obi-Wan Kenobi trailer. Like people are like, "Oh, this doesn't look like." But I mean, okay. Here's my gripe with that. Okay, you could go in and there's no physical way you have a human being play Cad Bane and the mouth is right here, an inch from the chin. It's not possible. What you could do is go in, CGI, slender the face down. But then you have the Hobbit scenario, right? Where it's like everybody loved Lord of the Rings. It was all practical effects.
Yep.
The Hobbit goes in.
Everything's CGI.
And it's CGI, which makes things more possible. You could not have a not CGI Smaug. Can't do it.
Yeah.
You can't have, some of the things that they had. Like, it doesn't make sense to have a warlord dwarf riding a giant pig into battle. You couldn't make that with practical effects. So what do you want? You can't have all practical effects, but you hate CGI. But then when they use practical effects for Cad Bane or for the Inquisitor, we all want CGI. So for me, it's like Lucasfilm, they can't do right. It's like darned if they do, darned if they don't type of thing sometimes. You know what I mean?
And like you said earlier, it can be, Star Wars fans can be kind of toxic.
Yeah.
And I don't think you can please everybody.
Right.
Like you said, toxic positivity, that's kind of the side I err on, where everything's awesome. And it's awesome until...
Like, there's things that I'm allowed to not like.
Yeah.
But it doesn't... I think there's some people that they have, like, kind of an old, like, I don't know, the typical, like, okay, boomer, like, mentality where there's some people that it's like, they don't like one thing, and then they get to decide, well, that's not real Star Wars then. And to me, it's like... Oh, I forgot. You're George Lucas. I'm sorry, I forgot. Like, what authority do you have to say that, that's someone else's? Like, for me, everyone trying to cancel the prequels when they were first coming out.
Yeah.
And now...
They did it with Solo, too.
Like, yeah, exactly. Solo. And then you go back, and I like Rogue One, but I liked Solo more when I left the theater. And I probably could go back and watch Rogue One more often, but that was freaking sick was more during Solo. And I think it's weird because, like, you have some people who they loved The Last Jedi and they felt hate from the people who didn't like The Last Jedi. And instead of just going, well, I liked it, that's okay.
Yeah.
They then turned on the Episode 9 fans because Episode 9 kind of undid a little bit of Episode 8. JJ was like, all these things that I had in Episode 7, I put it in there, And so he kind of forced some of the storylines into 9. And a lot of people didn't like that.
Right.
But it felt like the people from 8 who were loving of 8 were angry and hated on 9. So it's just kind of like,
and we saw 8 together, and we didn't walk out of the theaters being like, that was garbage, we hated it.
I was like, man, I was surprised by what happened with Snoke, blah blah blah, but man, that was so sick in the throne room. Like there was things we didn't like, but there was like, bro, what about that? What'd you think about Kylo destroying his helmet? What did you think about this? What did you think about this? And so I think if you like something, I think it's so important, and I've said this multiple times on the podcast, if you like something, it's okay to avoid the internet.
Yeah.
Till you cement how you feel about it. Talk to friends who know you, whether that's in person, on the internet, whatever. It doesn't have to be your brother, but it can be someone you've met online, whatever. But don't go looking for, because negativity sells. Negativity gets clicks. Negativity gets more exposure. And that's the thing is, you look at the YouTube algorithm, and it's like, if there's something negative, that gets more clicks immediately, which means more ads, which means YouTube pushes it because it's more money for them and everything. So it's like, when you first go online, you're going to see a ton of negativity. And it doesn't mean you have to love everything about Star Wars, but if you choose not to like the Book of Boba Fett because you didn't get what you wanted, and then in your mind, Boba Fett never got to ride a Rancor because that's not your Star Wars, to me, you're losing out.
Yeah.
You're losing out on so much fun. So take the bad with the good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think it's like the term, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like,
right.
I think it's like marriage. Like, there's sometimes you and your wife aren't going to get along. Doesn't mean like, well, this roast sucked. Divorce. You know what I mean? Like, don't divorce yourself from what we're seeing in Star Wars now just because there's parts you don't like. If you don't have to go back and watch the Book of Boba Fett,
right?
But don't go online and cancel it for everybody else because some people really loved it. You know. So, anyways, those were our thoughts. Man, I knew this guy was going to be a Star Wars fan whenever we were in PE together and he was reading Halo. And I was like, this guy's going to be a friend of mine. But so that's our review for the finale of the Book of Boba Fett. If you enjoyed this, obviously, please like this video, share it, subscribe to the channel. If you leave us a review with 5 stars on Apple Podcasts, we'll read it on air. It just helps get the podcast more exposure. Obviously, if you listen on Spotify, now you're able to give star reviews on there as well. So please do that to grow the channel and have some more toxic positivity for Star Wars in your life. Thank you for tuning in. May the Force be with you always. Thanks again, man.
No problem, buddy.
We will catch you guys next time.